And the first thing that I would just like to put to bed for no more debate, no more think pieces, no more flow charts. I don't want to see anything else about how Kyle made the right choice in overtime. I don't want to see it. And if you're leaning into analytics to prove to me that Kyle made the right choice, I'm going to tell you that this is the first Super Bowl ever contested under these new overtime rules. Therefore, there really are no analytics, and anything that you might have would be concluded as a small sample size in any other sports conversation out there. It was a mistake, full stop, to give Patrick Mahomes a chance to beat you. And maybe that's the key of it all. Forget about first possession, second possession. The job was don't let Patrick Mahomes beat you. And I felt that taking the ball first opened the door to that happening more than it shut the door to that happening. I don't know why Niners fans who spent all regular season explaining how Kyle Shanahan was bad at this actually get to a moment where they can criticize a decision that he made and then they're defending him almost blindly. It's a little weird, isn't it?
Well, just we all need to say, okay, we like Kyle Shanahan. We want to keep him as the head coach. And there you go. I mean, they lost the game. Okay. So right there, whatever you did always is going to be called into question, but you saw the video of Dave Taub, who's like one of the most accomplished special teams coaches in the NFL in the last 3 decades. And he said, guys, we got what we wanted. So, I mean, the other team's supposed to say, we didn't get what we wanted. Damn it. We lost the coin flip. They got what they wanted. But in this scenario, Kansas City lost the coin flip and got what they wanted. So that's an L. You can call it whatever you want. You can say whatever you want. I'm not saying fire Kyle. I'm not saying, it's the worst thing in the world, but they wanted it second and they took it first and basically got first and third instead of second. And in the way the college rules written, you always want to go second. You want to go second in the college overtime. Why? Because you're getting a try at it no matter what, and you want to know what you have to do. The other team doesn't score at all you need is a field goal. If the team scores a field goal, you know you need a touchdown. If the team scored a touchdown, if you want to win, you got to get a touchdown and a 2-point conversion. There's a lot of people that really believe there's real value in starting that drive, knowing what you need to win the game.
And what's odd about it, Larry, is that Kyle goes about every single coin flip of the regular season thinking the later possession is more valuable to me. I'd rather have it to start the second half than the beginning of the game. So why that isn't in play for him in that moment too, again, it's just another head spinner. This is why nuanced discussions probably shouldn't be happening on Twitter, where everybody just gets angry and says, well, your point is stupid, and let me tell you why I'm smart. There are different ways to look at this. But I really believe if you look at it Kyle's way, you're going to be looking at more Super Bowl defeats than Super Bowl wins going down the road with this. How about that? I wish that we could fast forward to next year's Super Bowl, going to overtime, and watch Kyle Shanahan not do the same thing again. Like, wouldn't that be the ultimate proof? Could we just fast forward to the very next opportunity where Kyle gets to make this choice? Do you think for a millisecond he's going to play it like he did last Sunday? I don't either.
Well,
there you go.
So, and yet, there is a stubbornness to Kyle Shanahan, and we'll see. To me, though, to pretend that was the difference in the Super Bowl, I don't view it as such. I watched the entire, and I would recommend anybody who's a Niner fan, go watch Baldy and his hour-long deal with Gargano, who's his podcast co-host, and Spagnuolo. They had Spags on for an hour, and they went through every aspect of Super Bowl Sunday. And one of the things that is undeniable is that really what won the Super Bowl for Kansas City was not anything Kyle did. It was the incredible play of their lockdown duo of L'Jarius Sneed going against Aiyuk and Trent McDuffie blanketing Debo.
Blanketing.
McDuffie beat Debo. Sneed beat Aiyuk. Now, Aiyuk beat Sneed at the end and would have had the final say, but we all know that Chris Jones wrecked that play and Spencer Burford missed a block. So, but there you go. If you want to give me, I missed the Super Bowl, Krugs. Give me the Cliff Note version. That was it right there. L'Jarius Sneed bottled up Aiyuk. Trent McDuffie bottled up Debo. The Niners had Debo as a huge part of their game plan, and they got very little out of it. And in reality, McCole Hardman and Jalen Watson, you say, who are those guys? Exactly. Those guys had better numbers at the end of the Super Bowl than Aiyuk and Debo. That's the real reason.
And after shutting down Kelsey in the first half, there was no shutting down Kelsey in the second half, specifically fourth quarter, last drive of the fourth quarter, first drive of overtime. That's when great players whip it out and show it to you. And that's when Travis Kelce decided to whip it out and show it to us. It was, look, Larry, it was sticky coverage and pressure up the middle. How do a lot of defenses win? What's the old cliche? What wins Super Bowls? Oh, that's right. It's not great quarterbacks. It's not great coaches. It's defenses. And Kansas City Chiefs defense, when it needed to be, was the best unit on the field, especially those corners and the pressure up the middle, frustrated the 49ers throughout the entire game. The one thing that I have heard, and I have not listened to the hour-long specific, I saw highlights of it, though, with Baldy and Spags and Gargano.
Right.
It is clear what a level of respect that Steve Spagnuolo has for Brock Purdy. He didn't think that he was playing the inferior quarterback in the game, a quarterback to be confused easily or taken advantage of easily. I hear nothing but, deferential respect that Steve Spagnuolo has when talking about Brock Purdy. And if that doesn't, look at it this way. If you were a little worried about Brock Purdy after the Super Bowl, listen to Kansas City's defensive coordinator talk about your quarterback. You'll be less worried.
Yeah. No, he was effusive in his praise of Purdy, saying that Purdy carved up his zone defenses, made him go to man. Purdy was on the doorstep of doing what Brock Purdy does, winning games. And then Spagnuolo, if you go back and watch the end of that game, Niners have the Chiefs on the freaking ropes, on the absolute ropes at the end of the fourth quarter. And if they convert the 3rd and 4, they're going to run that clock down, kick the field goal, and win the Super Bowl. They literally are. And 3rd and 4, that play blew up. They settled for a long Jake Moody field goal. Shockingly, he made it. And then the defense allowed Mahomes to do what Mahomes does, and that's drive the length of the field and get the winner. So, I have nothing bad to say about Brock Purdy in this game. In fact, if there was something that truly was accomplished in this game, is that the 49ers can go into their offseason knowing that they've got their guy at quarterback. Now, I knew that ahead of time. You knew that ahead of time. But there were a lot of people, Damon, that were like, well, let's see if he can win the Super Bowl. Let's see. Well, he didn't win the Super Bowl. But I think he showed that the moment clearly wasn't too big, that he clearly has that pedigree where he can get it done on Super Bowl Sunday. I have no doubt in my mind. And they have other needs, but he's not one of them. They can go forward. We can finally go into this offseason going, you know what? Yeah, they're looking for a quarterback. They might be looking for a third to go with Brandon Allen and Brock Purdy.
Again, I would much rather worry about a third quarterback than a starting quarterback, and I think everyone can pretty much nod along in agreement with that. Like and subscribe. It's great to have you here. President's Day. I don't even know why we still celebrate these guys, but we do, and it's a day off for most. Enjoy it. We're glad that you're starting with us. Make a little pot of coffee. Maybe there's another pot that's sort of a part of your morning routine, whatever it takes for you to be comfortable with yours truly and Larry. That's what we want you to do. Put your feet up and enjoy. The other storyline that I am sick and tired of, and I didn't see this one, you could tell that people are grasping for content straws in the last few days here, Larry. The George Kittle not falling on Christian McCaffrey's opening drive fumble being among the worst mistakes in the game and trying to pin that on Kittle is just ridiculous. First of all, he's 5 to 10 yards behind the play blocking. And, was he chatting up a guy? I don't know, to whip your head around to think that a ball's going to be popping out. Again, we're just looking to place blame. How about this? There is plenty in this Super Bowl that George Kittle didn't do to criticize him for doing all those other things. To say it's Kittle's fault that they lost that opening fumble is absurd in my mind. Would have been great if he recovered it. Sure, he didn't. But it's never anyone's fault they don't recover a fumble. These are hard to do. And I just don't see how that is a talking point du jour that I've heard a couple of times, just, consuming post-Super Bowl anxiety coverage.
Well, I mean, it's right there for everybody to judge. You know what I mean? So that's really it, right? I mean, that's it more than anything. It's just right there. We can all see it. And when you can see it and you know that he didn't play to the whistle, it's literally no different than the guy who's walking down the street and steps in shit. And we all go, "Oh, look, dude, you stepped in shit." It's like, it's real obvious. It's like, great. So, I mean, should he have played to the whistle? Yes, of course. You should always play to the whistle. But, I mean, beyond that, okay, you should play to the whistle. And let's get on to the next one. I mean, it's like George Kittle's a great player. I'm not gonna bang him over that. I mean, a lot of people were like, "Oh, he talks too much and this and that." You love him when he's chatting it up when, they're winning games, but suddenly when something like this happens, it's like he should shut his pie hole, and it's like I don't know. Everybody's going to be. I understand why people were critical, because that's the way people are. People are critical, but at the same time, come on, I'm cutting him some slack. This is the way he plays. He talks, and that's it. So,
the third and final thing, and then if you have more beyond this, Larry, please put it right on the table. But I know this is something that is near and dear to your heart. When we spoke last night, you said you wanted to get into this. The third offseason storyline that I am prepared to be growing very tired of, am kind of tired of, also could have almost predicted the way it started, and it's playing out. The saga of Brandon Aiyuk's offseason has officially begun. Would you like to talk about how this saga has begun or where you think it's actually going? Because the way it's begun is pretty much part and parcel of all wide receiver in public negotiations these days. You show up with your sunglasses on, you feel detached, you talk about the Super Bowl you didn't win. You have a sibling or someone, a girlfriend, start putting it out on Instagram. We ain't happy here. This might be our last time here. These are the opening gambits of modern negotiations in NBA contracts. So NFL contracts. It's really not that surprising that it's happening, a little bit disappointing, and a little unaware to me on Team Aiyuk's behalf here, because this is a guy who absolutely blossomed with a quarterback. If you're Brandon Aiyuk, you shouldn't be looking to get away from a guy like Brock Purdy and the 49ers offense. You should be looking to come even deeper into it than ever before. But that doesn't maybe get you the premium price that you're looking for on an open market, which you're not even on yet. So,
he's out there, Damon. I mean, the Niners have, Lynch has maintained that he's very important to the 49ers and that they, want to go forward with him. But it's a negotiation, and the Niners have Parag negotiating. Parag's a very tough negotiator. Aiyuk caught 75 balls, over 1,300 yards this year. He was an all-pro. But one of the biggest questions of the offseason is, do you trade him or do you sign him? Now, John Lynch has called him a priority, and he's entering his fifth-year option at $14 million. He'd like a player like Aiyuk, quote, to be a part of you going forward. That was the quote from John Lynch.
Well, so, and look, just not to cut you off, but if you're Brandon Aiyuk's agent, you're not letting him out there for a 1-year, $14 million deal.
Well, I mean, that's what he's due to make this year, right?
No, I'm saying, but so you're looking to renegotiate right now. You know what I mean?
Sure. Yeah, no doubt. And the question is, does San Francisco want to have, minimum, if you take Debo's 28 and Aiyuk's, 14, you're talking about $42 million devoted to wide receivers this year. That's going to be well over $50 million in future years. You're 32nd in the NFL in pass attempts in 2023. So are you going to pay $50 million when you throw the ball less than any other team in pro football to two wide receivers?
I mean, I would almost look at it like yes, because
you can't trade Debo, so it's not like a lot of people go, well, just trade Debo. Well, no, because Debo's not worth anything. At $28 million, you're only gonna get like a 5th round pick for Debo.
And then you got the dead cap space or whatever doesn't go over in terms of money. Look, it's just that they gave Debo a bad contract. There's no other way to look at it based on what he's done in the biggest game that he's just played in. And we still like him as a player. There's no doubt that Debo is a perfect Niner in many, many ways, but he's also flawed when you look at the actual salary that's committed to him. And if he were to have a number that stood in the way of doing business with Brandon Aiyuk, who is much more of a one wide receiver. And here's the thing, Brandon Aiyuk isn't a traditional number one wide receiver. He's more like a 1.5. But he's this team's number one receiver, right? I mean, he's the 49ers' best receiver. So what he is in comparison to the NFL really shouldn't matter to the 49ers. I think that they need to bring him back. But if I were to meet you out on the island of, okay, we do throw the ball, the 49ers do throw the ball very, very little, therefore saving a little money at wide receiver is something that they got to do, and trading Brandon Aiyuk gets you a return. Not that I want Brandon Aiyuk traded, but Larry, let's say that deal has to go down. What are you asking for? What is a fair ask for John Lynch if you're really dangling Aiyuk?
Yeah, I mean that's the ultimate question. What is the fair price, and who's coming knocking? Now, there's Kansas City needs a wide receiver. I mean, they're going to get a wide receiver this offseason. The Raiders, according to reports, need a wide receiver. They've got the 13th pick in the first round. They also have a couple picks, I think, in round 2. The New York Giants need a wide receiver. They pick in the top 10. Could you get their top 10 pick? Would you have to trade more than that? Would you have to be Aiyuk in your pick for the top 10 pick? I don't know. I'm not sure exactly what's going to be out there. I would say a middle first round pick is the least that I'd want to take. And I'd probably want to get 2 for 1. So I'd probably want to go,
picking a player,
Aiyuk and a player for a pick and a player, or Aiyuk for 2 picks. But one of them's got to be in the first round, and preferably in the middle of the first round, because I think, okay, so if you moved him, what would you do? I think you would turn around and you would want somebody, in the middle of the first round, like a Taliesin Fuaga or J.C. Latham, a plug and play right tackle would probably be your pick if you made that. So would you rather have another wide receiver like Aiyuk, or would you rather, trade Aiyuk, get a couple picks, and turn them into that blue chip tackle and maybe a replacement wide receiver? I mean, it's a tough call. It's a tough call. But when you look at their situation, I would say, and by the way, there is a report out this morning, column by Dan Graziano, ESPN.com, talking through the whole Brandon Aiyuk situation. And the quote, as it pertains to Aiyuk, says the most likely outcome, to me, the most likely way this shakes out is Aiyuk ends up getting traded to a team where he's the clear number 1 wideout, where he can get that extension that he wants, leaving the Niners to draft his replacement. Kind of like the DeForest Buckner situation. And I don't know how I feel about that, because I really like Aiyuk, and he's really, really good. But, There are other receivers in this draft. Brian Thomas from LSU, Xavier Legette from South Carolina, Rice's kid, Brendan Rice, I really like in maybe the third round. So, there's other receivers, and you got to get that blue chip tackle. I mean, at some point you have Brock Purdy, you now have to protect him. Now, what's more important, protecting him or giving him weapons? Because Aiyuk's his number one weapon. Especially on those in breaking routes. So it's going to be a tough call. It's a tough call either way. But if you ask me, bet everything you have on one thing or another, I'm betting they're going to trade Aiyuk for a mid-first round pick, take an offensive lineman, and then replace him in the draft or in free agency. That's the other thing. There's other free agents. You could go sign Calvin Ridley. You could go sign Mike Evans. You could go, and I'm not sure what they would cost. Maybe you could get them cheaper than Aiyuk. I don't know. But there's a bunch of free agents out there too.
Again, I understand it, but I don't like it, especially in Kyle's system. It takes a couple of years to learn it. Who is the plug and play wide receiver that in year one with the Niners made a difference? I don't think there is one, Larry.
It wasn't Jerry Rice.
No. But I mean, like, it takes a year or two, I think.
No, I know. You're right.
And Kyle is extra hard on coaching his wide receivers. Brandon Aiyuk's career began in the doghouse. So many careers began in Kyle's doghouse on that side of the ball. And I just think that finally, here it is. You got the wide receiver and the quarterback, and it is officially clicking. I guess what I'm surprised about here is that Brandon Aiyuk seems to be full of so many sour grapes about this. And maybe, again, it's just performative public negotiations. I don't know. But I'm surprised that Brandon Aiyuk isn't approaching this from let's figure out a way to keep this going, not so much all right, if, maybe it's time for me to move on. It just feels a little funny and strange. And maybe this is, Kyle wearing out his welcome with players a little bit. We know that Debo came very close to this when he was looking at his free agency. He had problems with the way that Kyle was looking at him and wanted to use him. That went to just veteran rest days during practice weeks to, of course, there was the whole element of, is Debo more of a running back and how should he be paid? There was that element that there's no element to that, to the Aiyuk negotiation. I'm just here it is. Finally, a pair of jeans that fit well, and you want a new pair of jeans? I don't like.
Well, the thing about it though is that you can't get tied emotionally. I mean, look at Kansas City; they had to get rid of Tyreek Hill. I mean, this is what's happening to wide receivers all over the league. I mean, A.J. Brown was great in Tennessee, and then all of a sudden it was time to pay him, and they're like, "What? We're not paying him." So, it's. These are tough decisions. These are really, really tough decisions. You can't pay everybody. You've already paid Debo. You're not going to be able to part ways with Debo. You also have Juwan Jennings, who just really played well in the Super Bowl. He's restricted, so you probably want to bring him back. There's always, it seems like every year in the draft is a good year for wide receivers. There's so many teams that play the spread in college that there's just a lot of good wide receivers in every draft. And they badly need a blue chip offensive tackle or two because Trent is probably not going to be, too far away from the end. So they've really got to, they got to figure out a way to make it all work. So it's, I don't agree necessarily that, that I'm not in a rush to move Aiyuk either, but the 49ers are not going to, if he wants $28 million or $30 million, you're really going to spend $58 million in wide receivers when you don't throw that much. So maybe it's going to be a very difficult negotiation. And it sounds like, if you ask me what's going on here with the dialogue and the rhetoric and the tone of the negotiations, is that they probably already exchanged numbers and they're probably worlds apart. And so that's probably Aiyuk's camp kind of reacting to Parag's early low offers. And they're saying, hey, look, if those are the offers, get us out of here.
I mean, it's all about guaranteed dollars, and how you whack that up is where you need a creative front office guy like Parag to make it all fit. It just, how about this? I think you are playing a dangerous game here because there are very few wide receivers who affect a running game the way that Brandon Aiyuk does. Brandon Aiyuk is a fierce downfield blocker. He's got all sorts of squabbles and is bought in to being a blocking wide receiver when the play is being run his way for McCaffrey or whoever. And that is a tough thing to cash in because I think you not only slow down your own passing attack by having to groom another first option wide receiver, but you slow down your running attack because you have Aiyuk out and you're probably losing Juwan Jennings. And Juwan Jennings and Brandon Aiyuk in different uniforms, I think automatically mean Christian McCaffrey isn't as good next year as he was this past year because those two guys open up huge lanes for him. So how can this 49er team not miss a beat by saying goodbye to both Juwan Jennings and Brandon Aiyuk? You hurt your passing game and your running game with those guys gone.